Oh, the robots of our lives. Welcome. This is the ceremony report focused on integration because I'm deep in it right now, and I feel so passionate about talking about acknowledging the need for integration, conscious integration. So I actually have I was supposed to have my integration call with my teacher White Wolf. I did ceremony with ayahuasca ceremony with, and yesterday, and it didn't end up happening, so we're actually going to do it today. And I was like, you could come to this. So I don't know if he will, but maybe I should ask him a sacral question. So yeah, what I discovered this about integration the hard way. I talked in the last ceremony report about how I would sat in 11 ayahuasca ceremonies over a year and a half, 11 years ago, and I had yeah, I mean that was it was also exciting for me to be a part of that. I loved my favorite thing, and the reason I think I really stayed with it beyond that first weekend was that um, I just loved the conversations in the morning. I loved how open people were. It was just such a freaking relief to me. I was like, can we just be like this all the time? That felt natural to me. And so, yeah, I just kept coming back for the mornings, basically. and and yet it wasn't there wasn't a big emphasis on integration. It wasn't even talked about in this space. I mean, a lot of the people in that community would sit monthly with them. It was really a lifestyle, and so I was kind of trying to keep up with that. Um and then without the I didn't really feel like I belonged there. So I think that it may have been that other people were getting integration, but I wasn't, because I wasn't like really a part of the group. I always felt like I was kind of grasping for it, and like every ceremony that I would join was like, maybe now they'll see I'm serious about, being in this community. And then yeah, the last ceremony that I sat with them, I it was just very clear to me I did not belong. They weren't looking out for me, like, um and I voiced my concerns, my criticisms to them in the morning, and they were like, we're gonna bless you on out. See ya. So, and I wasn't going to be staying anyway, especially with they were not receptive to my feedback, which, like where I am now in my human design experiment, a lot of that makes sense. It was just like the super pokey projector coming at them with feedback they didn't ask for. But they also, hadn't fully recognized me to allow me to be in all those ceremonies. Like they had no idea who I was, just being in there and seeing everything that I saw. And I also would, I would get invited to work on the chief and his wife doing energy work in the mornings sometimes, which I just filled with purpose with that. I felt so recognized with that. I felt so honored to work on them. And what would happen is that they invited me in to really, really look at them. And then I saw, I saw the dynamics of what was going on in that space. I saw the way that the chief was like holding all of these, like kind of packing this baggage on his back and just not dealing with it. And yeah, and some just weird energy around money, some weird stuff around that I saw about like holding on, like coveting ancestral trauma, especially for, I mean, this is in the context of native people, native to this land. So it's like you can say like, oh, we want to heal, but then if you're holding on to trauma as an identity, then you're only going to go so far. And it's false advertising if you're, if you're presenting yourself as a healer and you're asking other people to get over things, or move through things or whatever, but you as the facilitator are, hiding something from yourself in that regard to hold on to, then I mean, that just, it was glaring for me at the, for the last few ceremonies that I sat with them. And I really just kept trying. I loved them so much and I really wanted to help them with it, and they were not asking for help. So that was quite a pickle I was in, and I got myself in quite a bit of trouble, energetic trouble, I feel, and had a lot of heartbreak from it. I learned a lot from that as well. That was definitely part of the medicine for me. Um, so I did those ceremonies, and then I don't know, like maybe a year later, I had since trained in Reiki, and I had this wonderful, wonderful teacher. Yeah, here comes Halima. I had this wonderful teacher, just this very down to earth, like she's kind of felt like a ranch woman to me. Very practical feeling. I would guess she's a generator. Um, I don't have her chart, but so I had all these wonderful breakthroughs and all this clarity about who I am and this whole inquiry for myself. At the time I said, I was like working through like, okay, I'm a healer. Like I'm like trying that on. I'm like um experimenting with that in my space, experimenting with showing up that way. I was teaching yoga, so I had a place to engage with that aspect of myself and shift the way, which also came with my yoga training, is like just yeah, just like owning our gifts, owning our healing gifts, our helping gifts in relation to others. But I was also having like just I don't know, just like issues. I felt like that didn't make sense to me given all the healing work I'd done. You know, given how much of I had engaged with there are these little beetles, and I'm like, I don't know what you are, and I'm just gonna kill it and say sorry. Just like dropped. So I felt that I needed a soul retrieval. Like this came into my consciousness as a thing, and I also I broke my ankle back like in early 2000s, and I had to have surgery on my ankle, and so I was put under for that. And I vehemently was against it. I was like, can I just bite down on a stick and you said it like in the olden days? Like, I did not want surgery. And then they showed me the x-ray, and I was just like, oh, okay, I get it, because it was a spiral fracture. My bones were like splintered and sticking out all different directions. So I had that surgery, and then I didn't dream for like almost 2 years. And I was a very active dreamer. It was like every night I would go on a full on like like a movie. Like I would live these adventures. And this is part of I've long felt like I'm a spy or like a scout or something like that, which, working with White Wolf, that came up. We have a lot of conversations leading up to my first ceremony, and then just a lot of conversations that day, sitting and talking about intentions and who I am. And that came up. I was like, I kind of feel like I'm like a spy. And then we were talking about during the Cambo in the morning, and then we came back for ayahuasca in the evening. He goes, yeah, so You're right. You are a spy. You are like a spy. Or maybe this could have been with the energy work ceremony that he did prior. They keep kind of blending in for me. Yeah, I think it was that first one that I did. I did Cambo with him, and then I did, he calls it the Rising Star in the evening. We didn't drink any medicine. Um, but he's like, you are like a spy, but you're like here to, lighten up the frequency of this planet for, because there are these beings that they can't survive in this density, and that's like part of your mission. I was like, yeah, that totally resonates. And I think a lot of that I would play out in my dreams. But so my dreams went away, and then I started, and I that really was sad for me. And there was this kind of just like, I don't know, like checked out feeling I had about myself, that I was noticing. And then I found, my dream teacher, Robert Moss, who's amazing. Yeah, you know about him. Oh, he's great. He's an amazing, academic, really. He's an amazing writer. He's a great teacher. And so I first took in his book called Dreaming the Soul back home, and I read in there that you can, like, fragments of your soul, if you get put under like general anesthesia, like they're like these parts of you pop out, and they're in the hospital, and there's, like Black and Decker shit going on, and they're like, yuck, like this is horrible. And then all the weird spirits that hang out in hospitals, and that the soul's just like, I don't want to be here, so they just go somewhere that they feel better. Like it could be a place in the past, it could be a park nearby. But then basically when you come to, like, it may not have found its way back to you. And I felt really strongly that's what had happened to me. And I had since sat in ayahuasca ceremonies and such, and then learning about this after I was, I think it was after I was in ayahuasca ceremony, or maybe around the same time, I I was like, okay, I need a soul retrieval. That's what happened. That's why I'm not dreaming. I'm fragmented. Some part of me is lost somewhere. I need to call it home. So you guys, I did not know I was going to tell this story. This is like, this is a pretty freaky story. So my Reiki teacher, Colleen Benelli, does, soul retrievals. She also is a psychic, so like which was great for me because I went to psychic school, and it was kind of a framework for me. And she said, like, when she does Reiki on people, she does psychic readings too, just because otherwise it's really boring for her. And so I got that context of her, and I just really trusted her, having trained with her and seen who she is. And I just want a body test if I'm really going to tell all these details. All right. So, Colleen, I scheduled a remote soul retrieval with her. It was just on the phone. Zoom was just coming in around that time. And and so she started off by having me kind of tell my stories and like what I thought was going on. And I had mentioned ayahuasca, but it wasn't like majorly featured in my stories. She was like, okay. And then we moved into the portion where she was looking at my space, and, we're going to begin. And she was like, okay, you don't really need a soul retrieval. Like, what? She goes, yeah, you're an incarnated angel. And I was like, excuse me, what does that mean? Yeah, I mean, we're gonna we'll go through a process, and like all your ancestry on Earth will get a healing and stuff, but like you don't really even have to say sorry for anything. Which I feel is like, I mean, there's some sorting out to do. That it's not that I never say sorry, but I was just like really, I mean, I'm designed to shock and be shocked. I've got gate 51 in my cross. It definitely was a shock to me. And but she also told me that you know, she felt that what I was sensing I needed a soul retrieval for was that ayahuasca, the way that she sees it work is that it pulls you apart. It just like pulls you totally apart. Oh, let's see. Got a little there. And then the integration piece is that you don't, unless you actively engage with integration, you don't get put back together. You're just kind of like going around all like blah. And the pulling apart is so necessary because of the way that, we could in human design world call it conditioning or whatever, but it's just like foreign energy that we pack along and mistake for ourselves and have integrated into our system, all like woven in with who we are. Like that's the beauty of ayahuasca pulling you apart, is like then all those things can like get out. And boy, do they get out. But then like you don't get put back together, and then you have these spaces where more shit can take up residence, basically. So yeah, I didn't know I was going to be mentioning Incarnated Angel. I don't feel called to say more about that at the moment, although like maybe later if people want to ask me questions, I'm open to it. But the main thing that I really want to talk about is integration today. So I really got to have this visceral experience of like having all these breakthroughs, doing all this super hard work and ceremony, like facing things I didn't want to face, and then being so grateful. I also acquired with that the ability to look at anything that I think sucks and find the gift in it, not in a bypassy way, but in a way, in like an empowering, like um just deeply, deeply honest way, that it's like, on some level I created this. On some level, like this is an answer to a prayer, and if I want my prayers to be answered in ever more graceful ways, then I have to shift the way I relate to these things that I say suck, because I mean, I'm the common denominator here. So that was a beautiful gift of it. But then also just to really experience how I limped along after I left that work, just how I felt flailing and just kind of lost, and had so many things come up that I thought I had completed in ayahuasca ceremony. It's like, wait, why is this still happening? Does it make sense that it's still happening? So the way I understand it now is that it's like you have the breakthrough, and there's something, so I call it the sequence of initiation. So I came to recognize a pattern that it's the pattern of mutation that is facilitated through initiation. And there's 3 steps. There's the first is shock, and I learned a lot about this just understanding my design and my experience in life carrying initiation, the channel of initiation. So it starts with shock. That's when the breakthrough is, and it's like the tip of the iceberg, to be honest. Like we're like, whoa, this is crazy, but there's a way that we're actually numb to how big it really is and what it really means in the greater, I don't know, in the world, in our life, and the greater scope of things as we perceive them. And there's a grace to that, because there's a way that it's like, if you knew if you knew when you're asking for that breakthrough and when you just got it, what it really was, you might not have. But it gets you just in there enough that there's no turning back. Not really. So you have the shock, it's happened, there's no turning back. And I see these go in months, like in each a month collectively too. And then that's like in my work, that's how I work. It's like we have 3, for Clarity Journey, for instance, there's 3 months, 3 ceremonies with integration. So to give time for the greater cycle and the mini cycles that go on within the sequence of initiation. So shock and then integration. Now integration is like where it really hits us. And that's the work of it. And the thing is if you don't really know what's happening, you can think that you're majorly tripping. Like nothing's changed, everything's worse. Like one of the ways I relate to this is like with detoxing. Like if you go to do like a cleanse, so you have some symptoms that you want to like resolve in your body. And so you go and you do a cleanse or a detox. But then what happens before you feel better is you feel worse, because it's like it's bringing all that shit up to the surface, right? You get kind of pulled apart, and so the foreign energy it's just actively like in your bloodstream, moving around, getting dislodged from your colon or whatever. And it can seem like, oh my gosh, this is not working. Like if you're working with a practitioner, you might be like, this person's a total quack if they don't properly warn you about it. If you're doing it by yourself, which is why I'm a huge proponent of getting support for these things, you're at risk to be like, to just give up and be like, I'm doomed, and like create some belief that, that you were wrong in your sense of like of how to move it or how to shift it, and then maybe even try to fall into the way you were. But the thing is you already went through the initiation, the shock part, so then you just kind of limp along, and it's like never really returns to the level of functionality that it previously was, which we can feel even kind of like jealous about our past selves for, like, oh, I didn't know how easy I had it before, like if only I could go back, like never mind, I don't need to change, that was totally fine. So this is like the major fire to go through, and we're at danger of just like looping there for like, I mean, if you're a generator, a manifesting generator, like a lifetime, because you have the energy to go against that hard against yourself, even for how sensitive you are. That's what I call the blessing and the curse of the generative life force. It's like, I can't do that. I just am like, whoa, shit, I'm gonna die. So I gotta stop. So but you could feel like you can die for a long time if you have like a really robust life force. And I think manifestors might be some of them in that category of being able to maintain like high levels of resistance for long periods of time. the third the third phase is in the sequence of initiation is, I call prepare. And so that's when it's like initially, like you had your intensity of your integration time, um, and then it eases up. And then it's like, yeah, like you probably did some work, you might have created some tools for yourself, like, but without the awareness of what actually happened, you might go, whoo, glad that's over, not doing that again. And then kind of try to settle into a new kind of homeostasis. Um, I think it's a beautiful thing that we get a break in that third phase, that the energy eases up. In my opinion, the way to best use that time is to, yes, rest and nourish, but also practice it could be called practice. I call it prepare, because it's recognizing that it's going to happen again. You're gonna go through another shock. And even for those of us who don't carry this channel, like these times are very initiatory. Like we're just collectively getting like back to back, and individually getting back to back initiations. We're actively changing. We're actively mutating. We're preparing for, you know, in the context that I see it, and with my teacher White Wolf, like for these beings to come on the planet who can't survive in this density, and we're praying for them. We're like, we want you to come here. We want to be like that. We want to be lighter in our spirits, in our bodies. We want to be directly engaged with our creative capacity as humans. I mean, to me, that's the whole point of all of this. And that's what we've forgotten, is that we're creators. We're here to create. We're not here to duplicate shit and do it over again and like create some blueprint and like boop, 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 make another one. There's a story that I channeled around this time that I had my my soul retrieval with Colleen. It's called, you can find it on my website. It's called Origins of Light. And it's about that. It's like, how did we get here? What's really happening? And my intention was to write a story for the kids, to tell them like a neutral, non-political version of how we got to where we are, that doesn't like point a finger at anybody, but actually acknowledges the innocence of how things got so fucked up, and like how ultimately they're not fucked up, all is well. And we can reclaim, our nature to create and collaborate and commune. It's like getting on a ride with all these manifestors who show up on these calls with my open throat. I'm just like, woo. Okay, I can breathe and drink water and pause. Yeah, I feel like I can land this point, and then we'll see where we're at. Yeah, it's an opportunity, especially for those of you with defined throats, to just, which is like most of you, if not all of you. I don't know everybody's design off the top of my head, but um to just, yeah, see the way that it dances in me, that resonates with you, and also where it doesn't resonate with you. So yeah, I just hardcore learned that integration was almost everything. I mean, it's like we tend to think of the shock, the moment of impact, the moment of breakthrough to be all there is. And I mean, now that I think about it, with all of your witness, I think it's actually a mechanism of control. To think about it that way, or to teach it that way, or to give kids that impression, like, I mean, this is a Western culture problem that's like seen as a, I don't know, it's like, it's almost like a value or something, like, yeah, change, that's great, let's change, let's progress. um but like, not, but without the support for it, without the preparation, without the integration on either side of that, and you can see it so clearly in birth, in like literal birth and motherhood, and the way that, men and women have been like really pitched against one another. And the result has been, I mean, like, how do we have one single mother? how how do we have one without a community, to support that woman to raise that child? Like, this is a huge problem, and I think it comes right down to us not actually acknowledging and respecting integration. Like, on Earth, how does this work? On Earth, what needs to be done? Now that we see this, now that we've experienced this, like, okay, what's the sorting that needs to be done here? Okay, all right, that's foreign. Is it coming with us? Nope, it's not. Okay, that we thought it was foreign, but does it work with this new paradigm? Okay, it works. All right, it can come along. Ooh, what is this new piece? We've never seen this before. Like, how does this work? How does that feel in my system? Like, let's talk about this. Let's experiment with it. I saw Naja says, yes, waiting for the invitation of integration prior to invitation to change. Oh, yeah, you're a projector. I recall. Yeah, and I think even just like, I mean, it's a wisdom. it's a wisdom to understand that integration's needed. It's a wisdom to understand like a baby doesn't just freaking materialize and then raise itself. Like it needs to be conceived and then, nourished and grown and then delivered. And then there's all this other stuff for the rest of its life that it's going to need. It's not just birth. Like I used to be a birth doula, and then when I had my daughter, and I had so many people on my birth team. I really wanted nobody. um I really wanted to do a free birth, and I just ended up with like so many people and so many doulas and midwives, and I just felt like none of them really helped me at the end of the day. Like, not that I love them and I appreciate them, but like it was just a lot. But it was postpartum that I was like, oh shit, the postpartum doulas, that's where it's at. Like, yeah, this birth thing, it's great to have support if it's the right kind of support, if it's like properly recognized and whatever. But like, that's a freaking flash. Postpartum, I hired a postpartum doula as fast as I could. I didn't prepare for that. And I'm so glad I did. I mean, I asked for money from the grandparents. I scraped it together, and when she walked through my door, it was like she had an apron on and might as well have been a superhero cape. I was just like, oh my gosh. And this woman at the time, she had 5 kids of her own. I think she has more. Um, and she trains doulas, and she shows up and she serves. I was like, this is a professional mother. Like, she gets it. She gets what it actually takes without all this fluff and bullshit. She really shows up and is like walking it on earth, facilitating it on earth. So, yeah. When when I started to feel the call to Kambo and I learned about Kambo, I think I mentioned before that, seeing Nova share about it and her on her Facebook at the time, and we weren't as close as we are now, but like I was just like, that was one of the things that confirmed my intuition about it and helped educate me about it. And then I was like, but how am I going to find the person? Because I'm like so cautious now from my ayahuasca experience about who I work with. And I really have cultivated that as a coach, as a client, that I have this whole process that I go through with, to see if people are really a good fit for me and if I'm a good fit for them. And so this was the first time I was like engaging that with a shaman specifically. And I'd put it out there to this woman who runs a local like alternative mamas group. I was just like, I was coming into the group and, she was like, is there anything you're looking for in this community? And I was like, yeah, I'm curious about Kambo and finding a Kambo practitioner. And like, she right away she's a projector, by the way. And she like right away hooked me up with someone who knew Wolf. And then I was like in touch with Wolf and I was on the phone with him. And so we had many conversations, and the main thing that I was really listening for was if he understood and practiced integration. And I was very impressed. I felt like I just like had an 11-year prayer, a 10-year prayer at the time answered in finding him. And then I embarked on a year of I did 3 Kambo ceremonies with him over a year. And I really felt I want to have 3 before I decide to work with ayahuasca again. Like I just really wanted to have that confidence that I had cleaned my system to a certain degree, that I knew White Wolf well enough before I worked with him with ayahuasca. I'm so glad I did. It's so paid off. And um so yeah, that to me is the most important thing. Like when people are feeling drawn to do this strength of work, and it doesn't have to be drinking ayahuasca. I mean, working with someone like me is that strength. And this is why I've created this process clarity journey to, support people to see how they created the life they want to change, what the benefit of that is. um you know to really get a palpable sense of their highest access frequency point, that where they could see, like, oh, if I embodied this, if I committed to embodying this, what my life might look like, that my soul's been asking for. And then the integrating of the two of those, so that, like, we're not just diving into deep transformational mutative work. It's like, from there, like, those are the things people need to know in order to discern if they actually want to engage with a process like that, if this is the timing to embark on a transformation, if they have a choice about it. Maybe it's already happening in their lives and they're like, look, I've been trying to put this off, but, like, it's happening, so I better get some support. Like, that's a lot of the people that end up working with me are in that position. They're easier for me to serve in a lot of ways, because they're just, like, so in touch with the stakes of, like, okay, like, I've been trying to not go down that path. I've been trying to do it in an easier way, and it's not getting easier. It's getting harder, because they're going through those shocks, those initiations of the first phase of the sequence of initiation, but then they're not getting the support and the integration. They're not catching the practices to prepare for the next round. And so they're just kind of, like, limping along with these, like, half-baked transformations, and they can't go back. So it's just like this really kind of fucked up purgatory that can really reach a fever pitch in one's life. I mean, that's why I'm here and doing this work. I wouldn't have picked it out of a catalog. It was just like life made me, and then I was right there in, like, the ultimate one with, pregnant, homeless, and wildfires being like, oh, I'm gonna go here. No, you're not. I'm gonna go here. No, you're not. So it's like, that's how I was guided. And I see that it doesn't have to be that way. And that's why I'm so passionate about this work. But if someone isn't fully consenting and they're not clear, they're not clear about getting into that work, then I'm not going down that road, because that's just inviting, like, a whole shit show. And, we'll be grateful. We'll be grateful at the end, but, like, I want to prioritize grace and gentleness as much as I can, you know. So, and that's why I embrace integration. So, I mean, I could keep riding this verbal throat wave with y'all. Let me just check in with what White Wolf said. Yeah, Halima, you have a defined throat. Um, you have that 8-1, I think, don't you? I love that. I just have the one. So yeah, so I'll open it up to see. I'm just waiting to see if White Wolf is gonna meet at the top of the hour with me, or if we're gonna have more time. Um, but this feels like a good place to just pause, and if nobody jumps in, that's fine. I'm just gonna breathe for a little bit and be with you all. But yeah, if you would like to, if you have anything you'd like to share, if anything is resonating with you, if anything's not resonating with you, if you're like, that part just, like, doesn't, that sounds wrong to me, or in my experience, I'm really curious about that stuff. And if you've had this experience of going through an initiation and then not integrating it. And I guess I haven't spoken at all to, like, the what I'm going through right now. Like, my allergies are just, like, really bad. And my energy's been super low. and I just feel like I'm one foot in front of the other. I'm like really disappointed about my bandwidth for my daughter lately. And yet I just keep feeling called to like cancel childcare and just spend the whole day like at home like organizing and cleaning and stuff, and her just like playing or like wanting me to play with her and me saying no. And I'm just like, I had to bring in some just compassion for myself of what I'm going through. And then I also, like, my daughter's to the age where I can speak this to her too, like, Mama's feeling super tired. I'm really sorry. I feel grumpy right now. Like, she wanted to go to the beach, and we went to the bay side where the water's calm, and like, she was just like, come in the water, mama, and I like waded in a little bit, and I'm like, it's so cold. And usually I really like cold, like I love working with it, and I'm like, but I'm just like, I feel way too grumpy. I just don't want to feel colder. I just want to lay down on the beach, which she had kind of made a deal with me. She said, when we get there, you can just lay on the blanket. And I was like, I'm taking you up on that right now. Okay, so here's the part where I stop talking.
Mm. I wanted to share how much I was really appreciating your explaining all of that and sharing your story, because I definitely have a lifetime of not having support in the integration part and doing it myself essentially without even knowing that's what I was doing. I keep having these like synchronicity like pings that Naja's on this call. Because Naja, and then we have a third person, we call ourselves our trio tribe. We all lived together in property in Austin together for years. And so Kat had gone to um, ayahuasca ceremony in Peru and came back and was sharing about it. And she was sharing about how hard it was to not have the integration part afterwards. And that was the first time I'd ever really thought of that concept before. And it became such a huge part of like my understanding of that need afterwards. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that you shared, I feel like I want to share this video with Kat because I think that she could like really resonate with it. Um, but that's also one of the things that I really love about you, Sari, is the way that you do take that time to do the integration. It feels like a whole container holding. You know what I mean? It's not just like the here's the bam, and as manifestors, like we impact, we bam, and we don't necessarily have the energy to show up for people in the integration. But that's one of the beauties of, each of the types and their roles that they play is the ways that generate or projectors, I mean, can really disseminate that impact of the manifester. And you're just so freaking good at it. You're so freaking good at integrating and holding space for people on that.
Hmm. Thank you so
I feel
much.
really grateful for and all that I get out of it when we do the integration calls after ceremonies. I get so much more, and it really allows me to unpack it and apply it to my life and helps it kind of settle in better. I feel really grateful for that.
Mm,
That's what I wanted to share.
thank you, sweetie. Yeah, I mean, I just want to say a little bit in response is like, I'm really excited about you know, training and clarity journey, because I think I'm going to get to see the different ways that I mean, I've already seen like I've called it digestion, what happens with you,
Yeah,
and you're
that's
so
true.
good. You're just like the person I want to digest things with, like it's different than the guidance, but
Mm,
it's just as much
mm,
quality attention as what I do.
mm,
So yeah, and then it's like with
mm,
White Wolf, like he understands integration, but like the way he does it, as a generator with, and a man, and he just has that 360 from that individual channel from his root to his sacral. That's all he's got, and he's a 6'2" on the roof. So, he's got very few fucks, but so much love. And it's just like,
mm,
I don't know. It's a little mysterious to me how it's happening, but I just can feel him holding space and structure for me. And then when we're together, yeah, he just like maybe he's facilitating the building out of it for me. Like it, I don't know, I just, it feels so structural to me, the integration with White Wolf. And that for me also has to do with the ongoing relationship that we've agreed to, you know. So it's not just like till you come to your next ayahuasca ceremony, you know. It's, and I have deliberately asked for this too and checked in with him if that feels right for him to be in that kind of connection with me, you know, and he keeps saying yes. And so I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm starting to relax and like stop asking him. Because he's like, yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, let's do this, you know. Um but yeah, so I think I feel cautious to, you know, say that anybody like needs a projector or to put us on this kind of pedestal. What we do is certainly great, and you know what I do is great, and I've really engaged with what that is for me and how that, you know, how I engage with it with others. You know, I'm a left angle cross, so I'm transpersonal to boot. um and you know, and that may be true. It may be true that someone needs a projector, you know, like I talk about with manifestors, like, you know, I think it's good to have your projector that you can send people to when you're like, I'm not here to sort all this shit with you. And then send them to me and I'm like, this isn't shit. You know, like we'll get through this. Like I love to do this. I'm built for it, you know, like all of a sudden I have all this energy for it. Um, so yeah, and thank you. Thank you for
Yeah,
all.
I love that. I yeah, I appreciate the feedback about it. When you mentioned the digestion thing, I was like, oh right. I actually really do love showing up for people in that space. I hadn't thought of that specifically as like the way that integration does show up in the, you know, in my service to people. But yeah, it absolutely is. But it feels like also at some point, I just feel like, yeah, projectors. I mean, you guys are so made for it, and it's just so beautiful to witness. So beautiful to witness the ways that you're able to hold and guide, and I feel so grateful for that.
Mm, yeah, thank you,
Mm,
sweetie.
thank you, love.
I think of my coach Gary Mahler, that he's a manifester. He's a 6'2" as well, and like even just your presence, you know, like I was
Mm,
often most impacted by just his silence, whether it was like on a call with me,
mhm.
his silence and his curiosity, like, I don't know what's going on with this critter. You know, just like he just like bounce it back to me, you know, bounce the question back to me, and then I do my projector thing on it, you know, and he wouldn't, he just would never engage with me outside of himself.
Yeah, I think that's the tricky part for us manifestors is to figure out, you know, how to do that. Yeah, how to stay in ourselves and our energy, and also just saying, you know, that I'm saying like projector and manifestor, and all obviously each of us has that uniqueness that we're designed for, and so there's not one cookie cutter way for manifestors or projectors to do
Yeah.
things. So there's that also.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
God
there's
help anybody trying to model their projectorness on me. Like,
right,
I'm
right.
sorry, don't do that.
Yeah,
It's super
yeah.
weird.
Ah, I love it. Thank you.
Mm. Yeah, and I mean, last thing I'll say here, is it's, you know, how do we do that? It's a being. It's a being, and that's what you're doing, you know, like in your clarity journey and as we integrate here in your harvest ceremony, like you're happening. So we're gonna get to see.
Mhm.
Can I just express
That's
my
such a good point.
gratitude
Yeah.
for you and this? When I came on today, I was not quite sure what or if I would say anything. And I don't really even feel like I need to, other than just to express to you my gratitude for how much I can feel integrating within me and like the activations in different centers of my body as things are moving and integrating, just as you're talking
Oh,
through your experience. And I also have the 51 as my earth, you know, and I have the 2551 channel. And so I feel, yeah, I just feel some resonance there, but I just want to speak my gratitude. Thank you. Because I can feel that integration just happening spontaneously for me. And I don't even really need to like talk about whatever it is. It's just happening. So I just want to say thank you, for offering that to me in a way that it's just happening kind of effortlessly and fluidly. It's just really beautiful. So thank you.
You're welcome. My spleen was lighting up as you're saying that. I feel the truth of it. And I think that's the quantum aspect of the gathering and the engaging and the retelling of the initiations is that it's like you can just glean from my share, and it's the same for you, or like Nova's gonna do a ceremony report in a couple weeks, and you can come and glean and integrate things from her, from just the work she's done. And it seems to me we all have like a part, and so we don't have to go and do everybody else's part to benefit from them. That's where like we can really tribally and collectively gain momentum, when we gather and we share and we witness together.
I love that you say that. That's my authority is splenic, and I also have the 5710
Oh.
channel. And so when you say like your spleen felt that, I'm like, oh yay, it just like my spleen smiles when people talk about the spleen, and I'm like, yay, the spleen.
Yeah, it's kind of getting in the bubbly sometimes.
Yeah, so it's just funny. I don't think of like, I don't know, I just don't talk about or verbalize my splenic process or whatever. And today, apparently, when you said that, my spleen just kind of like smiled. It was like, yay.
I love it. What's your cross?
The right angle cross of penetration.
Oh, yeah, penetration shares. There's
Yeah.
57 and the 51. Huh?
Yeah. And then the 53 and 54 in the sun. Yeah. So,
Oh. Uh-huh.
yeah. Very interesting.
Do you have the channel of transformation? The the 53, 50. Oh, now I can't remember the numbers for some reason, but
I have the channel of
54.
I have the 731, the 2551 and 5710. Those are the three I have.
Yummy. Yeah.
So
Really
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm also a 3/6, and so I'm kind of like the OG fuck around and find out. So
I love it.
that's just kind of how I do.
It's huge then for you to be able to glean integration just from here listening to me. It's like it
Yeah.
kind of like rules out some fucking around for you.
Which I value highly at this
Right?
point in my life. So great.
Oh, I get
So
that.
great.
It's extreme with the 2551, like the fucking around. Like if you can skip anything with that channel,
Right.
not skip, but just like glean it, then freaking yay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I feel that one on so many levels.
I get it, sister. I've gotten no response from Wolf, so I think that means I have more time. Or we don't have to, but yeah, I want to breathe some more. Just breathe. And if you feel moved to pop in and say something, you're welcome. Oh, Helena, I'm seeing your questions. I can answer those if you like, or to the best of my ability. Yeah, I think manifesting generators may need a projector too, for sure.
One of the things that keeps coming up for me as I'm listening to Stephanie and just being present with, more of this conversation and just feeling into myself is the way that you talked about like that shock that happens if there's no integration. It's like there's these fractured parts. And for me, I'm a cross of consciousness. And so I do a lot of focus on personal growth. So I feel like I've experienced so many like the shocks and the like, the like ahas and the whoa and but like then it felt like there was just so much scattered everywhere, so much of my life because I didn't have that integration piece to like, set it back in where it goes. You know what I mean? Where it can go now. Right. And so it just feels like I've spent so much of my life feeling so scattered and like so many things, so much, breadth and, and then I'd have to be like, okay, I need to take a break from everything because I'm so overwhelmed. And I'd try to like settle all down and call it back in and, get to a place. And then I'm like, okay, I'm back in. And then I just, go and just keep doing it in these cycles. And so it's really, yeah, it makes so much sense, in this process of like moving slowly through all of this. I mean, there are definitely quickenings and things that can happen. But like really taking the time with each of these things and really, yeah, cultivating them instead of having, 1,000 babies just running around rampant, climbing on furniture and breaking shit. I'm just tracking all the way back to that analogy.
I love it. I'm so glad you brought this up. Now, White Wolf just called me, so I'm gonna be like, give me 15 minutes. It's so mysterious. The way
Mhm,
the sacral moves with just like the simplicity of him,
mhm, mhm.
he's just like, right now,
Yeah.
right now. I'm so glad you brought that up. Um, yeah, because what I see happens is that we can form an addiction to that, and it's because we think that we're going to get free if we go through another one. Like, oh, this time, just like this next breakthrough. But what actually happens is that we're just like frying our nervous system. And and then like what I've observed with myself with the 51 is that it's like, okay, great. Like I'm here for shock. Like I can feel that. Oh, okay. He wants to reschedule now. I can feel that. I'm meant for it. I survived all those other ones. It's just like bring it on. And 51 is also called like the leap into the void. So I would be. It's kind of like false start jumping. Like I was a swimmer in high school, and it's like you're up on the block, and you're waiting for the whistle or the gun or whatever to go off when everybody can jump in the water, but it's like you're anticipating it, and then sometimes you go before the gun, right? And then you're like, oh shit, everybody start over, get back on the block. That's how it can be. My teacher, Anna Forrest, from my yoga teacher training, um I think the way she talks about this is like she would call those kind of people like adrenaline junkies. Like, oh, just like go after the intensity, and I definitely fit into that category, because like I would just want to do all this deep intense hip opening and stuff and like these intense fancy poses, but like boredom was my real edge. Like the nuance, and because I would glaze over so much nuance in my nervous system, push it to the extreme where I was then, having a trauma response that was like very impressive and valiant. And I would survive. And I am also a survival view. So that probably stoked that situation. But it's like, I started to be like, oh, I don't have to do the most intense thing. Oh, like, and just like in the last couple of years, really, I've been realizing like how much I was relying on trauma responses for what I thought was progress for myself. And I was really just deepening the trauma in my system. And so, like, I think what my call or my invitation or like my recognition with all of this is that, like, go through an initiation cycle on purpose with support, you know, like just finally do it. Which is what I did with this big core one around my mother. And that because my trauma survival strategies had in the past for most of my life, well, for my whole life, have been to leave my body, go get into other people's body, meddle around with their space, let them get into my body, let them meddle around with my space. and it just would keep me in that loop. And, you know, so my pattern from witness ceremony, which is the first ceremony of Clarity Journey, is when people love me and leave me, I feel connected to God. So basically, I was like I was addicted to going through these initiations, having these false starts, but instead of getting back on the block, just keep swimming. And be like, hey, how come everybody's not with me? And it would return me to myself. It would return me to my connection with source. And so there was a belief, a deep belief, cellular belief in my system that I had to have that kind of crash, let down, which these words, by the way, come up in people's statements a lot, in order to have myself. And with the revealing of my pattern, I've been, you know, and this came as I was starting to, you know, allow the Clarity Journey wisdom to come through in the prior years, because I started being like, my intention is continuity. That's what I desire. I desire continuity in my relationships, in my community, in my business. Like, I want continuity. I'm like tired of like creating something, having all this enthusiasm and inspiration and connections, and it's like this all fucking blows up, it's all gone, and then I'm just like back to fucking ground zero again. You know, like I could see, especially with, you know, becoming a mother, that I can't sustain that. Like, how long do I think I can do this for? I've already had many near-death experiences, you know, including the 2 in ayahuasca. Others, it doesn't take, I don't have to go do some jungle medicine to have that experience. And that's why I took 11 years off too, because it's just like, okay, body, I'm gonna do this in a way that's like, that nourishes you and builds you up and gives you continuity. So yeah, and then as I really revealed it through my pattern, through witness ceremony, when people love me and leave me, I feel connected to God. It's like, oh, see, it works. And then with my knowledge of that, like, my mind can let go of this idea that I'm getting free of something or that I'm like, it's going to change this time because I'm going to like go into another love bombing situation. And another way I've come to see it is, you know, I'm a 5/1 in human design, that I would be leading my connections with my 5th line. Like, that is unstable. It's not stable. I have a 1st line body that has all of these needs to feel secure, and for other people to feel secure with me too. You know, like, that's what Clarity Journey is creating. You know, it's like we start to get to know one another. We create a foundation for our connection while creating a foundation of their understanding and experience of themselves with witness, you know. And then usually the first project I do with people after after Clarity Journey, if they move on to do a project with me, is a foundational one. It's like practicing who they are, doing that preparation work from what they learned, going through their pattern with their eyes open. Like, oh, there it is. Oh, it works. So I don't have to resist it. I could maybe make a slightly different choice, but knowing I'm not actually even desiring to get free of this. And just that has created more continuity for me. And to where I'm like, well, look, I think Nova is evidence of that in my life. You know, she and I did move relatively quickly into like being in business together, serving each other in deep inner work, and being friends. But we also went really slow. And then, you know, we recently had a big pivot that we made in our agreements, and she's still here. And, you know, like we went through the things that usually would blow up my relationships, but because of how deliberate, you know, and I'll just speak on my side. I mean, Nova's like an absolute match on her side, and she puts in the work. But like I deliberately like engaged creating a foundation of our connection, and, you know, asking for agreements that we would make in I mean, I'm like, this is advanced shit what we're doing here. Now, I've said that to people before. I said to my daughter's father, I'm like, this is a very challenging relationship. I'm up for it. I think we can do it. Fifth line. Well, he wasn't. So, like, what am I gonna hold up like a freaking, you know, cross of service generator without a defined ego? Like, you know, the cross of service has that 1858. They are just like so stubborn. You cannot, like, almost just like saying that like you think that they could or should do something means that they won't. Like, it doesn't even matter. It's just like, you said it, now I'm not doing it. But I did try. I didn't make it very long, you know. It was like 6 months into our relationship, 3 months into my pregnancy, and I was like, yikes, gotta go.
Siri, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Okay.
Gratitude. So much gratitude. You're like, I'm integrating all these things from my marriage and relationship that I'm like, oh my gosh, holy cow. Just speaking my amazement and just,
Okay.
wow. Wow.
So yeah, we can get addicted to these kinds of breakthroughs. We can go through them that they're like not high quality, you know, like they're secondary or third or fourth or whatever, like they're removed from the core thing. It's like, so like my interest is as a, you know, as a person navigating my own way and as someone who supports other people is like, what is the thing? Like, there's this thing about warts, you know, like there's the one that if you kill that one, I think I've been calling it motherwort, but I love that herb, so I just feel like that's not really a fair way to look at it, but I don't know, I could probably work it out so that it all makes sense. But like there's like I'm looking at my hand because when I was a kid I had warts on my hands and on my fingers and stuff, and there was like one big one that you know, you get rid of that one and all the other warts die and go away. And that's like what this thing is. It's like, instead of chasing all these like secondary programs around trying to get results. Now, see, that's where we're more often in a way comfortable because they're familiar to us. And there can be immense resistance to going after your core pattern. And I don't mean to say what I mean by go after is to actually just see it, to recognize what it even is. And then continue practicing remembering that. Because, you know, the survival conditioning has us like try not to see it, because it's like that strategy is around, it's protecting something that's very, very precious, and it's afraid that if you see it, that, it will be exposed. So it definitely takes a leap. It's a fire walk to find that out for yourself. And yet when you see it and you practice the awareness, it's just like it will eventually just shift on its own. um yeah. And I, the way I am, I mean, maybe because I am an intensity junkie, like I I've just had a lot of success actually engaging with it, I mean, intentionally slowing myself down and, tuning into the nuances, and that my edges are in the nuanced zone usually. um but yeah, I don't know, it's like if we don't practice that awareness and really engage with it, the danger is that it slips into, you know under the layers again of forgetting. And like I said earlier, it's like, while you can't go back, like it can just, you can loop. You can loop in that purgatory for a while. So my primary trauma responses are freeze and fawn. And so and, I even witnessed it with a client a couple weeks ago, that like I didn't even realize that something felt really off to me that they said until, a few days later. And so the way I engage with that is, like, in the past I would have been like, fuck, like I missed my chance, I'm out of integrity, um or like I got to come at them with something. And I just let it ripen in my consciousness, and I watched it. And then I had an opportunity that came up, and I had a splenic idea, and I just kind of threw it out there, and they were shocked by it. And I was like, oh, whoa, that just happened. And then I just said, like, we're going to kind of do a do-over on that ceremony. And it's just going to be an hour, and we're going to go right in, and I want you in trance space, because like, I could just see where I would meet them in their comfort zone of like, um of just staying kind of on the mental plane. So it's like, I'm just going to use it. I just use it all. And I'm willing to make mistakes and be wrong. And I've found they're just so, I mean, those are fertile, to actually be engaging is like, just creates so many more opportunities, and like sitting around and just going like, oh, I hope it gets better, or, you know, maybe one day. It's like, okay, let's look at history. Let's look at your history. Has that happened, And like, for someone like me, that was like really hard to see, because I had all these like really impressive starts to things, and people making big commitments to me in my life. But then I was like, but there's this abortive pattern, so I had seen that before I even got the precise language from witness ceremony. But it just was like, why is this happening? Like, and I didn't know how to stop it, and it turns out the way to stop it is to just like embrace it. I'm curious, Halima, if you're getting more of a sense of what integration is, or how it's done, or if you still have that question. Or if you have a sense of, I don't know if you're available to talk, but if you have a sense of like what Stephanie was saying, like maybe some integration's happening for you just being here.
Sorry, I'm out in the
the shop, the wood shop.
Oh yeah, you're making a table.
And
I
I-
was talking to Halima right before this. I'm like, "Are you coming to the call?" She's like, "I don't know. I'm making a table."
it's probably not a good one, but it'll at least be better than the one I made earlier this week. Um, Integration, it seems like one of those things. Like I'm not sure. I guess the problem is sometimes I find that there's different language in things, right? Like if you go to different modalities or whatever, they use different language, but they're all basically talking about the same thing. And so I'm not sure if integration is like just kind of like a review of what you've just gone through.
I would say that's prepare. Integration is like not optional. It's what's happening after the breakthrough. So like you might be able to see it with like when your husband died. Like there was like that happening, right? Like this big
Yeah.
shift happened. And then it's like the aftermath is the integration and just like all the things like the grieving, the anger, the insight, the making.
Mm,
I'm still
okay.
going. Like this is working. I don't know how, but it's working. And like, wait, how is it working?
Well, I guess I don't understand is how you not, because I feel like that's automatic, right? Like, how do you not do that? How do you not integrate?
I mean, I can sense something that's really personal for you. I don't know exactly what it is right now, but I'm just gonna like put it out there. If you want me to try to answer it in that context, if that's okay with you, then I'm willing to if something comes through.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
because I don't know what it is. How can I?
Well, I mean, it's like if I'm gonna say something that's gonna feel kind of piercing and confronting for you, if you're okay with other people seeing that and it being recorded.
Okay.
Yes? You want it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, let me just feel.
For integration clarity.
Yeah, and I'll just say what I just did there is like part of my practice of like not even looking if I'm not invited. Like I can sense it. There's like something, and I'm like, oh, but I'm just gonna check in with you and make sure that that's okay. And then I'm gonna double check because you didn't sound really sure. You still don't sound really sure.
Because I don't know where we're going. It's like come into this tunnel. We
Well,
don't know if it's going to be okay.
that's what mutation and transformation is. Like, that's what I think is kind of brilliant about this pattern I've identified. This is a pattern of mutation, but we know we don't know. That's what it comes from. We know we don't know what's going
Yeah.
to happen or who we're going to be on the other side of it. And so all we can do is navigate and know, like, well, I'm called to go into this fire. That feels correct to me. So I'm going in and I've got like all the tools that I know about. I'm practicing my awareness of what I've done in the past and how that may show up in here. Okay, so how do you not do it is the question.
Yeah.
Well,
Because all the things that you mentioned before, I recognize, and I feel that that's the natural progression of things.
yeah, but that's an extreme, like your husband dying and all that surrounded that experience, right? So like
Yeah.
that's the thing is that like these things get really clear when like life is doing it to us like that. But we create like a tolerance for these patterns. So first I want to bounce it back to you like how do you not integrate? Like how do you not complete something fully? Like how do you like go through it but then not really come out the other side. And you may have something like that with your husband's death.
The first thing that's popping into my mind is this sense of, I mean, and I don't think it's ever going to go away, but I'm eternally frustrated that I couldn't, for lack of a better term, get him to happiness. Like I couldn't get him to, does that make any sense? I see you guys nodding, so I guess it
Well,
makes sense.
yeah, and I have your pattern right here in front of me. Is it okay if I read that?
Yeah.
Or do you remember what it is?
When, I don't remember the word for word, but when I see that other people are unhappy, I play a role and then I get to shine. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So that is, yeah, I have it. When I see unhappiness, I play a role and I get to shine. Yeah, you got it. So that's like, they're unhappy. I'll make them happy so that I get to be happy, right? I get to
Yeah.
shine and just be who I am already. Whoa, my spleen's going off. Do y'all feel that? Do you feel the universal quality of that pattern, even though it's not your specific one?
That's an eternal like frustration. And he was a 4-1, and so I feel like there was no possible, like logically, if I'm following human design, I realize there's no possible way he was ever going to do anything other than what he did. He was never going to be able to see the value in anything that I had to give because he didn't already. And there was probably nothing that I could do about it. But it's like an eternal frustration with me.
Oh, but what a gift. I was the longest relationship I've had. I was with a man for 7 years who was a 4-1.
Mm.
I mean, they're great training grounds for codependence.
Mm.
People who are saying, like, I don't get to be myself until other people are.
Mm.
So, I mean, what a gift for you. And I
Yeah.
think what a correct guidance from your spleen to go through that whole process. And, like I had said to you before when we were talking about his death, like, I think he gave that to you. I think that was a gift to you. Because
Definitely.
he was like, just stop relying on me to just start being you. Like, he's like, I'm not going to participate in this anymore.
Yeah, that shit was hard.
Yeah, and you're not done because you're still dancing with, playing a role when you see other people's unhappiness. Y'all breathing? Because Halima might be waiting for you to breathe before she breathes. I was holding my breath. Like we get enrolled in each other's patterns. This is why Nova and I had to pivot. I was like, oh shit, I'm doing Nova's pattern to save her from her pattern. So how do you stop yourself from integrating, completing?
I don't know. Because, like I said, like I still think about it, and I'm still trying to figure out. And I imagine it has to do with expectations, right? Like I don't have control over how other people,
Yeah.
L-
So
logically, I know that.
I'd like to hold your feet to the fire if you're okay with that.
Okay.
I think one of the ways you do it is by not knowing or thinking that you need to know what you don't know. Like you get into this really confused spacey space. Like you'll ask a question. I mean, Halim and I have gone through clarity journey together. So, and we're now talking about doing a project together. So we've had some experience together. You'll ask a question. We'll go through a whole explanation. It'll make sense to you when we go to like, okay, now what is it? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so just take a breath into that.
It just doesn't stay with me or something. I don't know.
That's it right there. You're doing it.
It escapes.
Because I'm just like, I get no splenic hits with that. I'm just like, my system's just like, not true. Not true. And I can try to explain it to you, but that's how I get hooked in with you. Because I'm like, oh, let me explain it to you. Let me try to meet that confusion and explain it. But it's not, it has no intention of understanding. Its purpose is to keep you in your unconscious version of your pattern,
Mm.
where it may not be comfortable, as we are talking about, but is familiar. And so in that way, it feels safe. I'm curious if anybody here is seeing something in Halima that you're like, oh, and if Halima's open to that, you know, we don't have to do that, but would you be open to any reflections of, and it could just be someone, you know, your sense or how you, even how you feel when she goes into that confusion. Yes, honey?
Oh, I thought Nova had something because she had her little hand up.
Oh, you're calling on
Oh,
her? Yeah.
I did. I wanted to explain my understanding of integration, but then with Sari's invitation to share, I have the 6447 channel. I have this, you know,
So
gate
does
of
Halima.
confusion, right?
Yeah.
So the gate of confusion, right? It's like we need more information before it can distill down to that aha, right? And so that's what I'm feeling when I'm listening to this. And I'm like, I feel like I need more information. Like, I don't understand this. You know what I mean? Like, what's happening here? Like, you guys have spent more time together and have like a, you know, rapport and experiences or whatever. And I feel like there's pieces I'm missing to like really see what I think Sari is getting at, is what my personal experience is.
So I see a way, I see this in myself too. I love whenever I talk about the 6447, I'm doing this. That it like loops, like we can loop in the confusion and like the breakthrough. I see this, well, I see this in emotional people too, and that's an emotional mind, right? 6447, where it's like the clarity comes and then they go, wait, what? I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, and like can go on and on and on in the question, and the clarity was already there. So it's like, I think maybe it can happen because we spend more time in the confusion, and so we just get familiar with that, and we're like, well, I don't know, and maybe it comes off as like being humble or being honest, but like it's just that the knowingness is deeper than even the question asked. You know,
Mm.
so like what I'm kind of doing is like I'm trying to like pin Halima and be like, you do know somewhere in you. And then if anybody who's watching her can see something about how she might stop herself from integrating, because sometimes it's just easier, especially for a projector, you know. So it looks like
I
something.
I raised my hand. Is it okay if I?
Yeah, yeah.
So, Halima, is it okay if I speak? Are you
Yes.
okay if I? Okay.
I'll be
So I'm learning that part of my intuitive insight that I get through the 57 gate with my spleen is these little pictures. And because it's like an individual thing, I kind of feel it in my body. And as I listened to you talk and kind of watched, I felt this really deep kind of achiness settling into my rib cage, like the bottom of my rib cage. And I got just this picture and this sensation of the safety that is created in this pattern of creating a cage or a container to keep yourself within somehow. um, and that other people's unhappiness is kind of the key to unlock that for you in whatever form that happens, to allow you to step out of it. And I can't, that's all I saw was just this image of that being a container that has created some type of safety for you and has served. And so maybe part of your process is recognizing now that maybe that's changing or shifting. I don't know, because I don't know that for sure. I just know that's what I saw.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Other people's unhappiness.
Well, it's what your vision for the service you want to create is like the ultimate solution to that, yeah? And that you could get paid for and recognized for. And that's like what I keep bringing it back to is like, and I mean, you've told me too, so I'm like I'm basing this on what you've said, but that you have to go through it first.
Mm.
I think that's the only way it can actually be of use to other people, so that you can be grounded in your own, fulfilling your own need. Allowing that shine to happen whether other people are happy or not. And then that paradoxically allows you to help other people be happy, but not because you need them to be happy.
Yeah, that would be ideal.
I would love to, when the time is correct, I'd love to share my understanding of integration.
Yeah, just a moment, honey. I want to say, I see Naja's, what about being okay and the not knowing consciously? I think that's actually what this is. Because it's like so often it's just like, yeah, like I don't like, I'm trying to know the unknowable before I let myself do what I'm shown, what I'm guided to do or be. Like we tell this story that we have to know what happens on the other side, or I'll do it if we start bargaining, I'll do it if I can have blah, blah, blah. If I can have the support, if I can have the money, if I can have the, whatever, if I can maintain it like a idea of myself or an idea of other people. And that's not the deal. Spirit doesn't care, you know. Ask a 2551. It does not give a fuck. It's just like, this is what I'm asking of your being. And once you really see that, you can't go back, but you can, waste a bunch of energy fucking around and telling yourself narratives about like that you don't get to have who you are. So yeah, I think ultimately it's always a comfort with cultivating a comfort with the unknown. That the unknown's always at the bottom of all this. But it's like, I think that we bypass what we do know and we tell stories about it to feel like we know what we can't know. So yeah, thank you, Halima, and thank you everyone for participating. This is I'm called to start having office hours calls for my clients, and they're going to be a lot like this. So that are like in addition to what work we're doing one-on-one. All right, Nova, let's hear it.
So when I think of integration, first of all, I love the office hours idea. That sounds so yummy. I love the opportunity. It kind of feels like we're all siblings, like the people that we're working. And I mean, we had that funny joke about you being our mother, right? But like, there's the whole, like, I don't know, we're all on this like journey together, and it just feels really yummy to have a space to get to connect with each other. And so I wanted to say that. For me, integration feels like that, that shock, right? That thing that happens, it like explodes us, right? And then we're able to look around and see all of the sparkly jewels and then we like kind of pick them up and put them back in. And that's what integration is kind of like bringing it back in, bringing those pieces back in so that then we move forward differently. That's
Mm,
what integration feels like for me.
yeah, yeah, I like that picture. That resonates for me. And then I think it's like, you see the pieces that aren't sparkly that look more like, shit, and you're just like blessing them and releasing them, blessing them and releasing
Yes.
them. And that can look like grieving, raging, journaling, just noticing that you feel that a way about something because you may have thought you felt differently about it, you know? Like, oh, I really feel this way. Like with my freeze and fawn, like one of mine is like, oh, I think freezing and fawning has been involved like every single time I've had sex. And I mean, I've enjoyed plenty of sex, don't get me wrong. It's not that I'm not like loving sex, but that has because of um my limited capacity with the nuance of my own perception and the honoring and the respect of my body and what feels right to me. I have, I have bypassed myself and had a lot of sex that just has led me to more and more of this, uh, aborting. And so integrating that has been to catch it. And a lot of times, like I said, like it's after the fact. I go, oh, look, it happened there again. And so I'm breathing into it and I'm allowing myself to feel how I feel about that. Like, oh God, like I feel helpless. I feel violated. I feel betrayed. I feel disappointed in myself. I feel responsible. So feeling those feelings. And I work with Ho'oponopono quite a bit. So, I'm forgiving myself, I'm thanking myself, I'm loving myself, I'm apologizing to myself. I'm apologizing literally, I'm doing all of that literally to the sensation in my body I'm having. And then I'm preparing, I'm preparing like, okay, next time I'm in that situation, next time I'm on a call with a client and I get a little twinge, like I intend to acknowledge it in the moment if I can, and for now I'm just like collecting. I'm also I have the 6447 as well, which evaluates the past, so I'm like looking over past experiences and I'll be like, ooh, there it was, there it was, there it was. And then in the present moment, part of my integrative work is making it right if I possibly can. If it's just something to make it right with myself, I might be doing some writing or taking that to one of my coaches or a friend. If they agree to that, I'm really in the practice with my friends of asking if it's okay if I share something. And like my friend and colleague Amy Harris, like we were doing that quite a bit for a while, and then her life shifted and now she's been saying no to me. And we still have a lot of love and we send each other like little memes and like little funny things, and or share like something deep that's happening but we're not going into it. But I'm just like I'm not asking her for that. I'm not relying on Amy for that, and that's also got me hiring coaches again. But so, making it right for myself, if I need to make it right with another person, like in the case with a client that I course correct in the way that I discern what I feel is an integrity for me that's appropriate that they can receive. And then, yeah, just practicing the awareness to be prepared to possibly catch it the next time. I mean, for a long time, I was just like, I mean, it still is a thing, obviously, in the context of this story, but like I was just like, God, if I could just pause, if I could just pause. This isn't like, and I'm way better at this now, but I used to just get so caught in the responding trip, and I'm not a generator. So, I built a capacity for others' discomfort with me not responding right away or even at all. I would turn up my breath and it's so many, for years, it was just like, oh, there it was again. I wish I had just paused. If I'd paused, like I'd be on a totally different timeline, you know? All right, next time. And eventually I started catching it. And, some things still slip through for me, but I catch them pretty soon and I make them right. So I don't have that same, like, just, frustration with myself. Halima said, so integration includes what you learned, i.e. the moral of the story is, and how you move forward with this information as the new uncovered you. Yeah, I think it's practicing the awareness that came with the breakthrough, so that's like in the context of clarity journey, how we're like, we keep coming back to, like I'll ask you, okay, what's your pattern? You remember what it is? Like memorize that. Practice that awareness. And then it's in the moment, yeah, how it change, that awareness is going to change how you deal with it in the moment. So like for me in the past, when something happened that I felt uncomfortable, I would just talk. I would just like talk through it, and I would try to make the other person feel comfortable, and I would like try to go deeper into a bond with them. And it would create this like, like, I don't know, catalyst of connection that would show up as like love bombing, which I didn't know that was a thing at the time. And I would participate in that. I would stoke this fire of like connect, and then it would blow. And what I cultivated through my integration of recognizing that would happen is that like, oh, where did it start? There was a moment, they said something, I kind of went, ooh, but I left no space for me to have that experience of myself, and I just jumped into trying to engage with it. So, but if I had just paused, if I had just taken a breath, they might have said something else. I might have found out I don't want to bond with this person more. Or I might have been curious if I actually want to bond more with this person. If I want to have sex with this person. If I want to continue a friendship with this person. Now what I do is I find out. Like, oh, you know what? This feels weird to me. Something feels off. I may not even know what it is. Well, do you have an idea? Maybe you have an idea. How does that feel to you? Now I can relate through it. But first, I give myself the experience that I'm having. I need that before I can, start playing with someone else. Stephanie, like a bowl of cookie dough. In the beginning, all the ingredients are separate, and as we integrate them, they combine seamlessly to create something magical and yummy that we can enjoy on our own and share with others who like cookies. I love that. I feel a little emotion with that. That's a really cool metaphor. And Stephanie also said integration, for me, integration is a type of coalescing and coming together. Yeah. Yeah. The way I see it is like it's releasing what isn't resonating with this new trajectory. And then it's like taking all those pieces, the cookie dough ingredients, and, mixing them together and baking them. Like fire is definitely a part of it. Like I identify integration as like the fire that you go through. I mean, there may be a fire that you go through for, like that can be its own initiation. The shocking event after all. But I feel like the fire of integration is like, I am choosing to engage with this and, find out how this works for me. And I'm willing to see what didn't work, what doesn't, is apparent to me, doesn't work anymore. And I am actively engaging in either transforming that or releasing it if I can. like attachment to other people's happiness. In my coaching business, that's been my attachment to my clients' outcomes, which is also why I do Clarity Journey, because I'm like, if I'm saying like, we're going to get you this result, like, I can't be successful on my own with that. I cannot deliver that for you. We can identify what that's going to take. I can give my professional opinion of how I can help you. But at the end of the day, like, you're doing the work. You're walking through that fire. I'm totally able to walk with you through it. But if I'm like saying I'm gonna like, yeah, we can do that for you. You can go through this transformation and like live this life that you're imagining. But then I'm dragging you along. I'm not going to be successful, and I'm here for success. So don't do that anymore. Naja said, integration is like becoming whole again with the new data, not just seeing it, but incorporating it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and I think as projectors, this is really important to recognize, because a lot of times we can, we see so much. I mean, before I knew I was a projector, I would say like, I have too much information about people. And then I would fantasize about that information and like how they could be. And then I would say, this is how they should be, because this is who I see they really are. And yet not really take into account like how they could get there on earth, which would start with their consenting to engaging with that. Naja said, wow, I just got the visualization of integration, moving through the 5 phases, elements starting with fire and moving through earth, metal, water, and wood. Ooh, that's yummy. Fun. Delicious, Nova says. Halima said, I think I got it now, thanks. I think mine looks like falling apart depression. That's where I am able to see and learn, then I can rebuild. Yeah. Yeah, so it's like to recognize that. Well, that's interesting in your pattern, right? Because you see unhappiness, you play a role and you get to shine. So if you apply that to yourself, when you see your own unhappiness, so that may be that may be the consenting to your own fires to go through that process. It's like, oh, willing to see unhappiness in other people and then kind of maintain some kind of balance with that. But for this, this vision that you've been guided to create, like, you're going to be required to, probably embrace that falling apart depression. And just by doing that, it's going to change the way that you experience it. It probably is not going to actually look like what you're afraid it looks like. Like, I think I shared last week that there was this part of the ceremony, the group ceremony, where I was just grieving so hard. And I had this desire to I just wanted to let it out. I noticed myself kind of like holding back, and you couldn't tell that I was holding back. It probably didn't seem like it from an outside perspective, but I was having that experience where I'm like, I'm trying to be respectful of these other people. I don't want to like full on let this go in here. So you know what? Well, I'm going outside for a while. And I had just this delicious vision, like of me just like under the stars, like on my hands and knees, just like, just like, the ultimate, just like, I'm doing this finally. I stepped outside and it was gone. And then what it looked like for me was the integration of that was just like breathing and finding where I wanted to be on the property, and then informing White Wolf that I was going to be in a different place than I told him I was going to be. And then I discovered these beautiful stones, these huge stones that I could lay on underneath the open, clear sky, and just contemplate the stars and just be with myself, and then just have these gentle little reminders about who I am and what's happening. That it's like, when I'm in the delicious drama of it, feeding it with my fear that I'm hindering other people's experience, like the expression of that is like this just like impossible grief. And then when I'm willing to embrace that and just be like, fine, let's do this. Let's do it proper, It's like, oh, you already did it. Now it's time to sort through the nuance. I think this is probably my most fundamental tool in personal work, and with myself and others, is just like pull it in. Like whatever you're avoiding and trying to get rid of, just be like, come here, you. And then if it's not yours, it'll be like, let me go. I just was feeling into that actually with my allergies. I was like, can I just lay down and have a meditation session where I'm just like collecting all the sensations of this allergic reaction I'm having and just fully embrace them. Just be like, yeah, and even like try to turn them up. Be like, hey, you, what's up? Yeah, ooh, so itchy. So inflamed, so tired. Yeah, here we are. You and me. I mean, most of my life, I actually was in complete denial that I even had allergies. Like, it was a surprise to me to be like, take a Benadryl? I was literally prescribed Claritin when I was in high school, and I'm like, why are they prescribing this to me? So now it's like really in my awareness. I've been pretty miserable with it. I could totally like take a Claritin, but because of my sense of integrating these ceremonies, and where I'm like, you know what? I might be able to just go through this. Maybe I can go through. Maybe I've kept myself from completing my allergies my whole life because I've just relieved them. I've hidden them instead of just embracing, the reaction I'm having. See, Stephanie had to jump off, but thank you all for being here for this full 2 hours. I was thinking it might just be an hour because we'll get on the phone with White Wolf, but he and Caitlin are at a friend's wedding and in Southern California somewhere, and he's just like, we're rescheduling. He's focused on all their movement with the party. All right, well, we can end now, or we can end in 4 minutes if anybody has anything else they want to say. Thank you for coming, Naja. It's so wonderful to have you in this field. Maybe I'll just do some informing about what's happening with Clarity Journey. I've had this whole navigation since, the full process has come into my view, and I've been practicing it with individuals that I just have had this desire and this guidance to have it reach more people than I can reach. And so the answer to that has been to train other people to do it. And so there are some people who have been through it already, who are interested in learning about it. And I've just been so blessed to have this really unique way to approach it come through. I have a defined ego, and I'm really big on like sharing the wealth and people, things just feeling worth it for people, and so much of this work of helping people, in the context of our culture has to do with like really being with all the weird things we do with our patterns around money. So it's like you can have some great skill, but if you can't enroll someone in it or support them in enrolling themselves, like you basically don't have it. So what we're doing is there are people like Nova, and I think Halima is also going to be participating in this, who have been through Clarity Journey with me. Yay! Yeah, yay. And also Jerry Raber, who's one of the wizards who I work with. They're going to be, engaging and supporting people in coming into Clarity Journey, and that they would be along for the ride. So I'm going to be facilitating it. They're going to be witnessing the ceremonies. I'll be facilitating the ceremonies with people. And then, so it's like if you came in through Nova, like it would be you and me and Nova. And then also, the office hours calls to engage with the group if you like. But so if Nova brings somebody in, then she's going to get a portion of those, of that investment, and she's also going to be witnessing your ceremonies. So there's a ceremony every month that's 2 hours long, and then there's 2 integration calls is usually what I offer. So I would facilitate the ceremony and the first integration call, and then Nova would facilitate the second integration call, and then whatever else y'all come up with. If they offer more, that's up to them. But you'd have that, it's the first time we would actually be engaging witness within the container beyond just like the person facilitating. So I'm really excited about it, and just, for them to discover, for us all to discover, how their gifts come through, but with the integrity. This is a pattern that reveals patterns. That's what Clarity Journey is. So yeah, if you're feeling like resonance with this work, absolutely, I'm have room for a few more people that are just like one-on-one with me. So it doesn't have to be through someone, but also this is an opportunity if you resonate with, one of these people more, like it's like, I'm gonna like talk to Nova about it, that you could do that, and, feel into if that's correct for you, and all the things to get into the space, and then have that extra witness and loving support for the integration of this information. So yeah, and there are all kinds of places we can imagine it going, but I suspect I'll do this. I'm just gonna do it ongoing. Actually, it's gonna be like as people enroll, and and as I have space in my calendar, and then as they become proficient in it, I won't be there as much, and then they'll start being able to share that with people when they're ready. So Naja said, Clarity Journey is an in-person ceremony with medicine. No, it is it is online right now. It's a 3-month process. Some of my sessions I call ceremonies, because we treat them that way. And it's a deep inquiry into, let's see, it answers 4 questions. Do you even have deep work to do? If you do, what is it? Is this the time for it? And am I the coach, or who is the coach to embark on that work with? And then Clarity Journey itself, 3 ceremonies. The first ceremony is called Witness Ceremony. So each one takes a whole month, a month for the ceremony and the integration of it before we move on to the next one. Witness Ceremony reveals the precise language of your problematic pattern that persists seemingly no matter what you do. So we identify the pattern, how you do it, and why you do it. And the why is the benefit of it, which is always there. And it's something very, very precious that you can't get rid of, which is why you can't change the pattern. And then the next ceremony is called Highest Axis. And that one is an inventory of all of your desires. And not as a manifestation exercise, but as a, because each of your desires, even if they conflict with one another, or they have, or they're like impossible, you know, like they contradict the laws of physics or something, they all carry a trace of the signature, your signature for like your highest axis frequency, basically, like you, like the purity of you. So we sift through that so that you get a palpable sense, and I do too with you, of what that frequency is. So you really feel it, you know, like you taste it, you feel it, you know it. It's still faint because you have so much experience with it through your problematic pattern. That is the bulk of your experience. So it can feel a little more foreign with your highest axis. And it was like, The funny thing about it, facilitating it and witnessing it, is that it's like, it's so obvious, at least to me as a facilitator, like what it is. Like both Halima and Nova at one point were like, what is, like, but I don't understand what it is. And I'm like, it's... And then I get to remind them, because that's what it is it's like this practicing and remembering, which is where the witness comes in mighty handy. Like you're alone and you get a taste of that, but nobody was there to confirm that you feel like you're crazy later, you know, when you don't feel as in touch with it. So, and then the third ceremony is called Harvest Ceremony, and that's the integration of the two. So it's like each ceremony has its own integration, and then Harvest is the integration of the two ceremonies. And what that does is it basically is showing you the polarity of your continuum. And it's like, so there's a gap between these, right? Like, so we'll very clearly identify the gap, and that points right to what it is that you could do to bridge the gap. Which is like, you want to know before you go hiring somebody or doing another program or a training or something. My colleague Amy Harris that I mentioned earlier, she went through this with me to help me develop it. And so she wasn't trying to work with me. She was already working with this wolf sanctuary shaman guy. Like, but she was hitting a wall with making money, even though she's taken all these money, you know, courses, enrollment courses. She's an incredible space holder and coach. But none of it was working for her. And it wasn't working what was happening in the tribe that she was in, the lineage she was in with Teo, which, I mean, there obviously was nothing wrong with that. And she was a part of it, but she was just really blocked. And what we found is that she needed to ask for help with food. And while she was integrating that discovery, she got really frustrated. She's a generator. She's in the kitchen. She slammed a pot down on her induction stovetop and broke the damn thing. And then she got all worried about, like, then she was forced to ask for help with food, you know, to fix her stove so she could cook for herself and her daughter. It confronted her about money, being concerned that her landlady would, like, charge her for it. You know, she would have to, like, pay for this new stove. And so she was forced to do the thing. Because we actually had made some agreements for her to engage with asking for help with food, and she just didn't. She just did it, and she was like upfront about it. I didn't do it. I didn't do it once in the last week. Like, okay, Then she just did it to herself, made herself do it. And shortly thereafter, had a breakthrough about her marketing, which, in the first call that I ever served her on, she had the same question, and I was like, I think you just need to do it your way. She, so I basically had the answer for her, but she's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. A year later, we go through Clarity Journey, ask for help with food, smash her induction stovetop. Then she's just like, fuck it. I'm going to do it my own way. And guess what starts to work? And I mean, she's already spent tons of money on all kinds of marketing courses and trainings and, done a lot of great work and worked with great people. Yeah.
I wanna share something. I know I'm doing my ceremony report in a couple weeks, but I just wanted to say, like, I was so surprised. Like, I did not have any idea what my pattern was, and I've like devoted my freaking life. Like I said, I'm a cross of consciousness. I mean, as a teenager, I started getting like aware, doing all this self-help, personal growth for like almost 30 years. And witness ceremony blew my mind. I could not believe that, and it has changed every area of my life. It was so surprising and incredible, and I just wanted to say that, and I'll share more about it. I guess I'm teasing everybody. You get to come find out the details of my ceremony report, but no, my point is just that, like, I thought that I knew, and I was surprised by what I found out, and it's been so powerful for my life. So yeah, just wanted to say that.
And it's like, if you're already somebody who's been willing to do hard things, and like engage and like go through all of that, it's like, then once you have the precise thing, I mean, to see Nova just freaking, like, I just feel like you're just like, you just like got to work. You're already at work, but like with the alignment, it's just been like insane how quickly you've been changing.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't help not. Like, I couldn't stop myself. Like, I mean, goodness, I just want to like say so many things. I guess I can just share, and then I can also share them again. But like, the witness ceremony with you created like a reset in my body. And like Naja had said something about like it's a ceremony with medicine. You were the medicine for me. Like, your presence and your just getting in there, it like just flayed me open and like reset my system in ways that, I mean, I'm gonna share. I keep being like, okay, I'm gonna share this little thing, but like one of the most like surprising things that happened was I started bleeding a couple days after witness ceremony, and I've had no PMS symptoms for the past 4 months because my body was so hard reset through that ceremony. Like, it just balanced me out in a way that I didn't know was possible without some kind of medicine, or, not just got her degree in traditional Chinese medicine. I know all these, there's all these ways that people, you know, do this that I thought needed to be something physical. And I was so surprised at like the reset that my body felt after witness ceremony, and just the ways that I just couldn't help but just be different. And I would notice there were, my pattern still showed up, right? There were still ways that it was showing up, but like there's this huge project that I'm working on right now. The Human Design Mexico experience is like this, event that's going to have like, over 100 people, blah, 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 right? Like this huge thing. And like, if I had tried to do that, and I've been doing business for years and like all of these things, right? Is like, if I had tried to do that before Clarity Journey, this would have been a very different event than it's going to be.
Yeah.
Because Clarity Journey, like, not only did it reset my system, but it helped me see this pattern that was like, you know, like sabotaging, not, I mean, it is, but like, I get that, like, it's sabotaging me because it has my best interest at heart. And it's like,
Yeah.
do this thing, right? But like this way that this could have gone so differently, that this whole event could be such a different thing for me. And then the energy that I put into it, what other people would experience also, like the impact of my energy. And so like, I am so grateful that I did Clarity Journey before doing anything else. Like, my daughter just moved out. I'm like getting back into business because I've kind of put my business on hold for the past 2 years to take care of my grandson. And I am so grateful that I did Clarity Journey with you because everything is different. My relationships are different. My business is different. This event is going to be different. Like, how I am and who I am and how I show up in just my every moment of my day is different because of it.
Mm.
And I cannot imagine what it would have taken, how much longer I would have kept doing that before I if before or if I ever got it. Like I yeah. And then it was like also so obvious. Like once we saw what my pattern was, I was like, well, yeah, of course I have been doing that my whole life. And I didn't even, it was like, a fish being like, where's water? Where's water? And it's like, oh, that's water. Right. And so then it
Oh,
was like all of a sudden I could see it everywhere. And that's why it's changed my entire life because I see it everywhere now. And I go, oh, okay, I could do that. And that's what I love, Sari. That's what I love is how it's not about trying to stop the pattern. It's not about rejecting it or whatever. It's like, you can still do this. You have full permission. Like, this is, self love. This is, whatever. You can still do this. And so when I have that freedom to be like, oh, wow, I'm seeing how I'm doing this, I could totally do this if I want to. And then my body is just like, yeah, no, we'll pass this time.
I mean, you
We'll pass this
have been very
time.
impressive in that regard. Like, I mean, I just want to speak to that, like, we're all different critters, and,
Yeah.
yeah. Like,
And
I've been really astonished at how quickly you have implemented what you found. And I think that's a testament to, like, all of the consciousness work you've been doing your whole life.
I
So,
was gonna say, like, I was so fucking hungry for it. Like, I was so fucking hungry for it. I had been like building everything up to it. And so when I got it, it was just like, oh, thank God.
yeah.
Now I can let all of this go. And talking again about integration, like this is part of my integration process is like still noticing those places where it's happening and then showing up in it and showing up with it and and bringing the pieces back into me or letting the things go that aren't correct to continue with and then I just keep moving forward in these new ways and it may be that it's a pattern that I will always you know be in awareness around or have tender little pieces of it in my life and be like life's work that I get to do and I'm fine with that
I see
because
it as
every
like
time I
the
notice it
maturing
it's
that happens through the process of
Mhm.
clarity journey. It doesn't go away. It might seem like it goes away, but it's actually just
Right.
matured or evolved into
Yeah,
the expression of what it actually is,
yeah,
without
that makes
all the
sense.
weird things it has to do to contort to get to the benefit of you, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like you going through it has been like a huge impact on the work, and like just what you're already starting to share about is like I'm getting to, it's like I feel a little like protective of other people's experiences, maybe that they don't have like that successful I mean, I feel everybody who's done it has had incredible, astonishing results for sure. So that, but there's one part of me that it's like I don't want it to become like a comparison, like it has to be like Nova's. But on the other hand, I'm like, oh, like this could work in the way that like you could be like, it could work for me like that. I could commit to it being that way for myself, you know? Or I could be like, no, I'm good with going slower and, you know, taking my time with it. And I mean, I know for me, I just mucked around. I went right into my pattern. I slept with people on purpose on the first date. I identified that was one of the ways I did it, and I went and I did it on purpose. You know, and I did that so that I could really do this work with integrity, because one of the ways that um and now I definitely ever would never do that again. But that's the thing, is I'm like, if I do this consciously, it will be the last time I ever do it. I went in twice. I did it twice.
A-
And now I'm
And
like,
you
I might never have sex ever again. Like, it has to be so aligned. It raised the bar for me so high that I'm actually like so extremely respectful to all the nuances of my system and alignment with it.
it's just going to make a human design point. But yeah, I mean, for me with my third line body, it was like my body learned, like, oh, that does not work. And
Yeah.
it just physically could not
Yeah.
keep doing it. That's how my body works. Once it gets it, it can't. And so, I mean, like I said, there's still those parts where I'm like, oh, I'm doing it again, right? Places in my life, I mean, and then, for you with your first line body, like having to test that foundation,
Yeah.
to like really get a sense of it. So I love that there's like this, differentiated way that we all do, the process and the integration and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can see too right now that like, I think that's I really understand how valuable the intensity is. And, you know, for those of us who've been addicted to the initiations and stuff, that it's like, I, I'm trying to provoke that in your in your clarity journey. You know, if it's not already happening, then I'm going to poke. That's kind of like what I was doing with Halima. It's like to fully feel the intensity of that, because, you know, sometimes we kind of just want to hunker down in the prepare phase after, you know, we had a big initiation, we had a really like shit show integration, and then we got the break, and then we're just like, okay, I'm just gonna stay right here on this little island, you know. But it's like how you actually have to I don't know, this metaphor of like I have some screws in my ankle from when I broke it, and I was really against having foreign material in my body at the time, and so I was like, I'm going to get this taken out. And they were like, well, you have to get it taken out like within a year, and it's a whole other surgery, right? And it's a whole you're basically like doing it over again. But if you wait longer than a year, your bone starts to grow over it. And then not only do you have to have the surgery, but they have to like chip away your bone and shit. So it's kind of like that. And I think this is probably my foundational, you know, nature as well, is it's like, look, like we're gonna have to reopen this wound to actually complete it and heal it. Things are gonna happen probably that you say like, that is the last thing I want to experience ever again. And yet, unless you go through that, it's gonna be staying with you in the way that it has been, you know. So it's like, is it tolerable? I do still have screws in my ankle. I didn't end up doing that, you know? So in that way, I'm maintaining foreign bodies. I also have a fake tooth, which I really want to get rid of. So, all right. Well, especially when Nova's here, it's just so hard to like limit ourselves. But thank you all for how long you've been here. It's just so yummy. I'm so excited to be doing this. You know, a big piece of guidance I got out of these ceremonies, you know, with my question of like, well, how do I serve people? You know, and so that they can have the space and the resonance to feel if they want to do this work or if that's correct for them, you know, and the people that I work with, you know. And it was like, just connect with people. Just connect with people and tell the truth. And So yeah, right now we're like in an intensive, like pretty much every week. I'm hosting one of these as I'm integrating my ceremonies, as I'm, integrating this guidance, and being in the just like walking the having Nova share her ceremony, and actually next week is Jerry, which I'm just so excited because he brings a whole other other flavor. He's a 3/5 um, projector, ego projector with he has a 2551. So he's a total wizard. He has had like already before we even met, he was on an intensive, transformational journey. He grew up a Mennonite, was in, a marriage as a result of that, a 23-year marriage that, through our work together with Clarity Journey and the projects that we've been doing since, like, the marriage came to a natural, graceful end. It is right now, and it's astonishing. It's what he's what he's been. So I'm really excited to share Jerry. It just doesn't feel right. I'm like get to see him all to myself, and in that way too, that he gets to experience himself, other people seeing him, which is how it works for we projectors. So, all right, I'm gonna take a break before my next amazing client. I'm integrating him in harvest ceremony with another client. It's really exciting seeing the direction come through, and just sorting through that. And my door's open, so you're always welcome to reach out to me in any of the places where you can, Facebook or replying to the emails or in Mighty Networks. And yeah. Bon weekend. Big love, everyone.
Thank each of you. Thank you, Sari.
My pleasure.